Alright, what's going on, guys? Dorohedoro Volume 4. I know it's been a while. I thank you for your patience, but with that said, let's get right into it. Now we're going to start with Chapter 18, otherwise known as The First Smoke. Now, if you remember from Chapter 17, Nikaido was escaping from En's mansion. She had a mushroom growing out of her back. Kaiman saw her and he was trying to cut it off. Unfortunately, he was unsuccessful in doing so. So, with no other choices available to him, Kaiman decided to take Nikaido over to Dr. Vox and Dr. Kasakabe. And they're helping Nikaido as best as they can. They're trying to remove the mushroom. And they decide to inform Kaiman about Shin. Because if you remember from a previous chapter, Kaiman had his head cut off from Shin's hammer. So Dr. Vox just kind of wants to give him a little more background information about this mysterious magic user. And it turns out that Shin used to be just a regular person living in the hole. Now, if you remember from a previous volume, I can't remember what chapter it was, but Shin did mention that he was from the hole previously and how it was the worst time of his life and he was always living in constant fear. Well, that constant fear could have been due to the fact that he was being hunted down. Turns out he's half human, half sorcerer. And one day he got discovered. He cut himself and some black smoke started to seep out. Someone reported him. And back in these days, it turns out there used to be a militia that would go around the hole and defeat magic users. So they hear about a magic user, they hear about the little kid who has smoke seeping from his wound, so they decide to take care of business. Now, unfortunately, they aren't able to find Shin at first, but they do find his father, and they end up killing him. Now, after his father's death, Shin was a wanted man. He decided to kill as many of the militia as he could, and they were looking for him for a couple months. Now, we then pick up with Dr. Vox and Dr. Kasakabe as they notice some sound coming from the inside of their hospital. And as they walk into the hospital room, they notice there's a boy sitting there with a smile on his face and his arms cut off. So Shin decided to cut off his own arms, and what a sadistic, awesome scene this is. A lot of dedication on Shin's part, I gotta say. There's no way you could pay me to do this. I mean, hell, if you said, I'll give you $1 million if you cut off the tip of your pinky, I couldn't do it. The pain would just be so intense. But anyway, I guess this is very common practice for sorcerers. If they can't use their magic, they decide to cut off their own arms so that they can find the veins where the black smoke is coming from, and then they can kind of reconfigure it from there. So instead of turning in Shin, Dr. Vox and Dr. Kasakabe actually decide to help him out. They do the surgery where they can find his vein where the smoke is coming out, and then Dr. Vox reattaches his arms. Now, he knows these arms are going to rot away eventually, but once he gets to the sorcerer's realm, he can kind of take it from there. He can get new arms. But then, right after the surgery, Shin decides to go kill some more militiamen, and not only kill them, but torture them. So he would slice them up in a way where they would be disfigured, their heads and arms would be off of their torso, but they wouldn't be dead, and they would die a slow, painful death. So Shin is a very sadistic person. This is a nice little chapter here. It gives us a lot of insight into Shin's psyche, why he holds such a grudge to the people of the hole. But wow, what a sadistic little child and person. Just absolutely nuts. But, very entertaining nonetheless. Now we're on to chapter 19, which is titled Sewer Elegy. Elegy being a poem for like a dead person. This chapter's kind of a funny one. There's some weird happenings in the sewer here. But before we get to that, Dr. Vox notifies Kaiman that the toxic rain in the hole actually weakens sorcerers. So that's a little bit of interesting information there. I almost wonder if they could somehow collect the rain and use it as a weapon against the sorcerers in the sorcerer's realm. So we'll have to see if that will play a factor going forward. Now it's kind of interesting because Nikaido's in the hospital and she's always cooking cooking Kaiman food. Now Kaiman tries to cook some food for Nikaido, and he freaking just burns it. It's cold in the middle, it's burnt on the outside, so he decides to order a pizza, which is kind of a little hilarious scene. I had to chuckle at that one. That was kind of nice. Now, after the whole pizza situation, Kaiman is talking to Dr. Kasakabe, and he reveals some interesting information about Nikaido, the fact that she is in fact a magic user. Now, Kaiman kind of doesn't give us much information. He kind of seems like he's a little bit taken aback, but he doesn't really show any emotion, because right before it happens, we hear a scream, and Kaiman goes running to Nikaido's room, and he looks and the window's open, so he jumps out the window, he goes running down the sewer, he's trying to figure out what the hell happened, and then all of a sudden in the sewer, we see this giant cockroach or insect creature, and it's on, son, it's fucking battle time. And this creature is so freaking disgusting, but you have to take notice of the fact that it's wearing shoes. So I don't know why it's wearing shoes. Maybe it doesn't want to get its feet dirty in the sewer. I don't know. But anyway, we got a nice little battle here. Some punching, some kicking. This is pretty entertaining. I'm very interested to see how this is adapted in the anime, because this looks like a very exhilarating battle. Now, Kaiman decides to escape from the giant cockroach, and he finds this mysterious man, and he's over Nikaido's body, and he looks like he's gonna kill her. He's talking about a black pearl, but she doesn't have one. And just as Kaiman's about to defeat this guy, the guy screams out, "Johnson!" and the cockroach comes back. So it turns out that the cockroach not only wears human shoes, he's got a human name, and he can kick some ass. I mean, he takes Kaiman down, and Kaiman really can't do much to stop the cockroach or the evil guy who wants to kill Nikaido. But just as the cockroach has Kaiman down, Kaiman uses his sword to cut off the feet of the guy. And what a sadistic act, but that was so freaking awesome. So some very interesting developments in chapter 19. We found out from this evil dude that if you kill people and you collect the black pearls inside of them, that you can in fact become a sorcerer. So that's some very interesting information, and I almost wonder if at some point Kaiman will do this for himself, just so he and Nikaido can both be sorcerers, and they can maybe try to take down the N family. But we'll have to see how that all plays out. Alright, so now we're on to chapter 20, which is labeled the All-Star Dream Game. Now in this chapter, we find out that Ibisu's smoke was found at the crime scene in a smoke store. And because Ibisu still has brain damage at this point, she has amnesia, she doesn't really know how to use her magic, they send the smoke over to the laboratories. That way they can understand what kind of power she has. Now afterwards, Fujita decides that he's going to go to the hole and get revenge on Kaiman. It turns out that in the beginning of the chapter, he was in a graveyard and Kaiman killed one of his friends. So he wants to go back, he wants to get some vengeance on Kaiman, and he decides he's going to go back to the hole. Now, he's going through the door and he tells Ibisu to stay there, but at the last second, she jumps through the door and it turns out Ibisu and Fujita are going on an adventure together, and I couldn't be happier because Ibisu so far is my favorite character. Every scene, every manga panel that she's in is just an absolute joy, and this chapter and the following chapters are no exceptions. Now, in the search for Kaiman, Fujita goes to a hospital in which he enrolls to be the pitcher for a baseball game, and Ibisu decides to be the mascot, which happens to be a shark. So, how the heck did Q Hayashida go from, this sorcerer versus hole battle to, hey, let's have a baseball game, let's, and this is one funky baseball game. Again, I can't wait to see how this is animated because it looks like a lot of comedic, hilarious scenes. And it looks so objectionable, but hilarious at the same time. So this is going to be a really exciting episode to watch when it comes out. And what's really funny, as they're getting prepared to start the baseball game, it turns out that Dr. Kasakabe has found a new member for them to join their team, and it's the cockroach from the previous manga chapter. So he's gonna play some baseball too. I tell you, like, where do these ideas come from? And as the teams are entering the field, they got this nice little shot with all the players, and Kaiman's got this pissed off look on his face, and he's like, "You remember the snacks, didn't you, Nikaido?" I'm just like, he is so pissed off and determined. I'm just like, dude, you... like, where do you get off to treat this friend of yours like a housewife? If you were married to her, that would be one thing. It'd still be a little bit sexist, but, I'm not gonna judge. But, I mean, you guys are just friends, and you're just like, dude, where the fuck's the snacks? So anyway, we're getting ready for a baseball match, son, so, here we go. So now we're on to chapter 21, the All-Star Dream Game heats up. Now, before the baseball game can get fully underway, we go back to En's laboratory, where they're analyzing Ibisu's smoke. Now, unfortunately, one of the assistants makes a mistake. He trips, and the smoke bottle falls on top of Noi's head. So they're like, oh boy, what's gonna happen here? But before we find out, we transport back to the baseball game, and we see Ibisu in a shark's costume. And, she's got a cute little song. It's hilarious. She's talking about biting girls in their bikinis. So again, can't wait to see how this is animated. But then the baseball game's underway, and Fujita's the pitcher. And before he makes his first pitch, he notices that the guy at the plate is his friend. Now, it's his friend that is dead. They reanimated the corpse, and... And Fujita's like, those fuckers? How could they reanimate my friend like this? Those desecrating bitches. So anyway, the game's underway, and Fujita absolutely sucks as a pitcher. He's just giving up a bunch of home runs, basically getting owned. And then after like a couple of hits, Kaiman comes up to the plate, and it's pretty funny because he's just kind of sitting there with his bat, and for no reason whatsoever, he's just like, fuck. And I'm like, why is this dude so pissed off today? He's pissed off about the snacks. He's pissed off at the plate, and then he swings and he hits a homer and he screams, I'm so pissed off. So I don't know if it's because of the other guy on the team that wants to ask Nikaido out on a date. Maybe that's what's pissing him off, or maybe it's because he thinks someone's gonna steal his snacks. But Kaiman's just kind of in a bad mood this chapter. So, the baseball game continues. We got some silly shenanigans going on. And then Johnson comes up to plate. Now, if you forgot, Johnson is the giant cockroach, and Fujita just gets so distracted by the giant cockroach at the plate. I mean, how could you not? That he ends up throwing 4 balls in a row and he walks him. Now, Johnson's at first base, and he's going to make the most of it. He goes from a bipedal position down to all his legs, I guess you'd call them, and he's ready to go. He's ready to steal not only second base, but third base as well. This guy's a fast motherfucker. So he just zooms. He goes for it. And, man, some great stuff, I gotta say. And then after that, Nikaido's up. She's pitching to Kaiman, and she's an ace. She's throwing strikes. She's making people whiff. And it's a 1-2-3 inning, pretty simple stuff. And then we finally have a magic baseball battle between Fujita and Nikaido. And Fujita decides to give Nikaido some chin music here. He's like, you bitch, you're betraying your own kind. He wants to send a message to Nikaido. Now, the new dude seems pretty surprised by all this. Kaiman's like, whatever, Nikaido will take care of it. And she does. She smacks a ball, and she smacks it so hard that it goes... The guy that tries to catch it, it goes straight through his glove, and it smacks him right in the face. And he looks like he's dead afterwards. Now, after this, Fujita's like, fuck this. I'm done with this fucking baseball shit. I found my friend. I'm just gonna grab him. I'm gonna summon a magic door, and we're just gonna get the fuck out of here. And that's what they do. And that's the end of the baseball game. Now we're on to chapter 22, labeled Reptile Spawn. Now, the black powder that fell on top of Noi in chapter 21 has had an interesting effect on her. She is turning into a giant lizard, not unlike Kaiman. and she looks pretty menacing and strong, and she's very aggressive as well, and she decides to have a battle with Shin. She can't really control herself in this state. They're going toe-to-toe. Noi's got her tail wrapped around Shin's neck. They're battling it out. It's so hilarious when this is going on because En's just kind of sitting there in the corner and he's like, my. Like, he doesn't have any sort of, like, sense of danger. He's just kind of like, oh, you know, this is kind of interesting. Let's see how this plays out. Now, after Shin is able to defeat Noi, En notifies Shin about a magic user that is able to dispel magic. And it just so happens that En has this magic user in his mansion. It's a big, muscular bird man who lives in a cage. And I gotta say, he's pretty affectionate towards En, you know, in a very creepy sort of way. Now, the bird man, i.e. Chota, begins to concoct a mixture of some ingredients. He's getting ready to dispel the magical curse that is on Noi. But the final touch is that the dearest person to Noi has to donate some of their entrails. So the only people there are En and Shin, and you can kind of guess who it's gonna be. So we find out from this encounter that the dearest person to Noi is Shin. They're magical partners after all, and you know, it seems like they're starting to develop affections for each other, so we'll have to see how that plays out in the future. It would be kind of weird in Dorohedoro if we had sort of a romantic story develop, but maybe Q Hayashida will have an interesting way of presenting that story, so maybe that will be something to look forward to in the future. But I gotta say, after the curse is broken, Noi's tits are absolutely massive, and this isn't the first time we've seen those tits, and I'm just gonna venture a guess here, it probably won't be the last time. Back at the mansion, Fujita's friend is just absolutely going nuts at this point, and in his insanity, he grabs the back of Ebisu's skull, and all of a sudden, a bunch of black smoke just starts emitting from Ebisu, and she turns into like some sort of velociraptor dinosaur creature, and then she just tears the dude to shreds. So, I have no idea what the heck was going on here, but the critical detail of this manga chapter is after this happens, Ebisu transforms back into her regular self, and she says, I remember. So it seems like her memories have returned. But what did she remember? Well, that just happens to be in the next chapter. Okay, so we're on the final chapter of Volume 4, Chapter 23, A Good Day to Leave. Now we finally figure out what the mystery is behind Ebisu's magic. It turns out that she can turn other people into lizards, and due to her consumption of black powder, she's able to mutate people into reptilian abominations, similar to how her magic changed Noi into that reptilian super badass creature, and similar to how she changed herself into like a velociraptor sort of dinosaur creature. So very interesting, and En seems very fascinated by this development and wonders if they can control her magic and utilize it better in their future endeavors. And then we do have a moment where Ebisu knows what was said to her when Kaiman bit down on her, and the guy inside Kaiman's head said, you bothered me. So was Ebisu the one behind changing Kaiman into the reptilian-headed dude? Very fascinating stuff. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Now, in the remaining part of the chapter, we're following Risu. Now, Risu's trying to remember how he died. He remembers talking to one of his friends. He's wearing a gas mask, and he says the cross eyes cannot be trusted. And as Risu goes to like this abandoned sort of shrine, if you will, he gets ambushed from behind and he gets sliced in the neck, and that's where he dies, unfortunately. So, you know, he's got a lot of questions and not so many answers, but he does have a lead. He can go contact his friend and sort of figure out maybe if they'll lead him to the right place. Now we go over to Kaiman, and Kaiman's thinking about Risu, and he's thinking about how his memories are starting to slowly come back due to his appearance in the magic world. So he then concludes from there that his only choice is to go back to the magic user world and to sort of put together the clues to his enigmatic past. That's what he does. He abandons the hole and Nikaido, and the very next day, Nikaido is looking for Kaiman. She's cooked some food for him, and she finds out from Dr. Kasakabe that Kaiman is left, and she looks very concerned, and that is the end of the chapter. So I gotta say, Volume 4 was very interesting. The comedy was really good in this volume. I really enjoyed it a lot, especially the baseball game and the whole sewer incident. In terms of like the plot and the characters, I mean, not really too much going on there. I mean, I am interested to see what happens with Kaiman's past, but I mean, it's not the most intricate plots I've ever seen, and the characters are pretty surface level, but I feel like at this point, the series is really using the plot as a means to deliver its erratic, strange, dark comedy, and it's working very well up until this point. I would say in the earlier volumes, I wasn't as attached to it. It wasn't as funny, but especially with the Bisu becoming comedic gold, and even some great moments with Kaiman here and there too. And of course, how could I forget Johnson, the giant cockroach? So, good stuff. I'm really looking forward to Volume 5. I don't know when that will be coming out, but I can say the first episode of Dorohedoro is coming out very soon. I believe not this Sunday, but next week Sunday. So in 10-11 days, guys, we'll be reviewing episode 1 of Dorohedoro. I am a little bit nervous about the 3D animation. It looked a little weird in the previews, but you know what? I thought the same about Beastars, and I was proven wrong there. So we'll see how it goes. I'll end it right here, and I'll see you guys with Volume 5 and Episode 1. Catch you on the flip side.